Welcome to another episode of the Becoming Thin podcast. My name is Terrell, and I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood, chronic yo-yo dieting, and now I teach other people how to get the same results in their life. And one of the things that I'm doing here on the podcast as I move forward is I want to begin sharing stories of real-life people with real-life weight loss that did it the slow, sustainable way, people that actually transformed, people that went through the hard times. And this week, I am actually out of town traveling. I'm in Scotland with members of the Guild, and we're going to go on a fun little adventure. That's one of the things we do in the Guild is we go on fun adventures. And but I still want to keep the podcast going on the road. And I had a recording that I've been saving for this week, and I'm really excited to release it to you. It is with a wonderful person. Her name is Shelly, and she has an incredible weight loss, becoming thin journey. And I can't wait to share it with you. I had the opportunity to sit down with her recently, and she walked me through her journey. And I discovered a lot of it cold because I wanted to discover it at the same time with you, the listener of the audience. And so I'm about to switch over to that. But as you're listening to this story, I want you to really think about a couple of things. Success is messy. Success also isn't always pleasurable. In fact, many times there's painful, difficult moments along the journey. For many of us, the beginning of the journey starts with pain. And with Shelly's journey, there'll be a part, especially when we talk about what I call the oh shit moment. It's when you go, oh shit, I think I need to make some changes. Something's got to be different. And she has an incredible story of transformation to see where she has started and where she's at now. So I can't wait for you to hear this. So I'm not going to talk any further. I don't want to delay this anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the interview with Shelly. And if you enjoy this episode, please leave a comment if you're on Spotify. And if you leave any nice comments for Shelly, I'll make sure she gets them. And if you are also a listener of the podcast on any podcast platform, if you enjoy the podcast, please consider giving it a rating and a review. But I would like to have the opportunity to earn that first. So give me a few listens as you go. And if you're not a member of my free Facebook group, you can go to facebook.com and search for Becoming Thin, and you should find the Becoming Thin community, or you can find a link to it in the show notes as well. Now, without further ado, I present to you Shelly's story. Shelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How do you feel being here?
Terrified.
Terrified?
Good. Great.
Oh,
I'm equal parts terrified and eager. I've always had this fantasy of like being interviewed, but now that I'm actually here, I'm like a little scared.
Have you told your story to anybody, kind of like going through and touching on all the major highlights of it before?
Yeah, I would say that I have. I'm a guildie. I'm one of the guild members, and we have the program called Marco Polo. And so I have talked about myself a fair amount in the Marco Polo groups. I'm also an ambassador, which means that when the new people come into the guild, we introduce ourselves. And so I've talked about what I've been through, at least in little snippets.
Good. Well, this will be fun to get to give yourself time to let it breathe, tell the stories. Let's go back to the beginning. And I like to think of it as the before times, before the oh shit moment of like, all right, I got to make some changes. So what was life like for you before you decided to make any changes?
Overall, I would have told you I was great because I had a nice husband, a nice kid, a nice house. There were all of these things that I could point to that were good. But I also had chronic migraines, really bad pain. I've had agoraphobia ongoing for years, crippling depression, yada, yada, yada. So, back then I would have absolutely said, I have a really nice life. I have nothing to complain about. But then if you would have said, well, but then what are your complaints? I could have given you a very, very long list of complaints. But it was mainly physical stuff because I was always in so much pain.
Well, you said you had complaints. What were some of those complaints?
I had so much pain in my body. I had chronic migraines and it seemed like there was never a day that I didn't have a headache. It would certainly seem that it was generally, if you were rating yourself on a pain scale, what my pain scale was, it was usually an average day was probably around a 3 or a 4, with a lot of days being higher than that. And so I never had a day where my pain was at a 0.
Got it. So was a lot of this pain also caused by just size as well, or was it due to other factors?
No, I would say that it wasn't because of my size. I would have said I have chronic pain. We don't know why the doctors won't listen to me. I have chronic migraines. We don't know why the doctors won't listen to me. There was just never they would do the blood work and the blood work was perfect. They would say, there's nothing wrong with you other than everything hurts. So, yeah.
So for those that won't know, because we want to get to your starting point, what did you weigh at about this time of your life?
The highest weight that I ever was recorded at a doctor's appointment was 340. When my oh shit moment happened, I weighed 325.
Okay. Okay. And had you tried many diets before this last one that took in the past?
Nope. Oh, the last time that I tried, I'm 52. The last time that I tried to lose weight was when I was 25 and about to get married. My husband proposed to me on my birthday, which is in October. And so I hurried up and joined a gym and got a personal trainer and we're going to lose all this weight so we can be super hot on my wedding day. And I lost about 30 pounds. And what ended up happening, pardon me, I have sinus issues. What ended up happening was we lived in Morgantown, West Virginia, moved to Rochester, New York, which is closer to my hometown of Buffalo. And first of all, my husband had a decent salary for the first time. And so we could afford to eat at restaurants. And we lived right around the corner from all of these restaurants. I swore up and down I was maintaining, but I wasn't. So I had lost all of this weight and picked out my wedding dress in the spring, as one does, for my fall wedding. But when I went to pick up the wedding dress 2 days before the wedding, it didn't fit. The wedding dress it didn't even come close to fitting. And I had been so sure I was maintaining and I wasn't. I didn't. They ended up having to sew these panels into the sides of the dress, and it's in all of the pictures. It was awful. That's the last time I tried to lose weight. Then I was like, no more. I'm just big now.
You just said something there at the end. It changed how you looked at weight loss. Is that what you were suggesting?
Yes, yes. Because it seemed like every time I had tried to lose weight, all through my teenage years and my college years, I was very invested in being beautiful. And so that kept me smaller, but it was such effort. And it seemed like every time I let go of the reins, I didn't just put on whatever weight I had lost, I always put on more. And so it just was so pointless. Like it's worse to lose the weight and then put more on. Let's just go ahead and be this size. And yeah.
So for you, weight loss attempts not just equated with a temporary visit to being smaller, ultimately ending with being bigger than when you started. So why go through all the
Yeah.
trouble?
And it was humiliating because it was like, you'd kind of parade through the world, like, look how great I look. And then the weight just came back on. And it was like, I set myself up to fail. Why would I do that? Yeah. What?
You're hitting me with that one because I've done the same thing. The
Right?
parade of victory followed a
You
year later with the walk of shame of like, yeah, I gained it all back and I'm fatter than when I started the
Exactly.
first time.
And fatter than when I started the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like for me, it felt very much like insult to injury having that every time that
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
just such an
thankfully, people
unhappy
didn't really.
experience.
It is, yeah. And thankfully, people didn't really bring it up, but I'm pretty sure people were noticing and thinking it. I mean, because I would see it and notice it when others do it too. And I'm like, they're not blind. So, yeah. What was your relationship with food like back before you decided to make any changes?
So I recall, I'm going to kind of go off on a quick tangent. I recall being in with one of my many shrinks. I've had many shrinks. So my son would have been little. This would have been early 2000s. And I was crying because I kept putting on weight, kept putting on weight. And I was so disgusting. I was so disgusting. And my shrink was, he was this very calm type of person. And he said, okay, so when you call yourself disgusting, does that make you eat less food? And I said, no. And I'm, crying and like kind of mad, like, no. And he said, well, why don't you just enjoy the food then? And it was this moment of like this blaring spotlight of not just a light bulb but just this massive thing. Like I could just enjoy the food. I don't have to hate myself. I don't have to act like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, I don't mean to be eating all this food. So what I ended up doing was I just embraced all of the food. I ate all of the food, and
So
it
you
was
totally
awesome.
took the reins off.
Yo, yes. Yeah.
And
Like I
but
should
did
have
it
been,
lead to you feeling
anybody
better
who,
about yourself?
it kind of did, honestly. It felt like a radical act of self-love to just love the food. Like, I'm just going to eat it. I'm going to eat it anyway. Why not just eat it and love it? And so I did all the time.
So while very helpful for your self-esteem, it was creating a secondary thing of like an entirely new view of food of like, why would I deprive myself from any of this?
100%.
Did that make it harder to change, do you think, in any way later down the road?
What ended up happening was it didn't make it harder to change after the oh shit moment. What did happen though was that we talk about what is it, confirmation bias. Every time I think I felt like embraced the body positive movement so radically that I ended up harming myself. Does that make sense?
I think so. You embrace it so much that the way I describe it is for individuals that go so far into it, like same with the healthy at every size, is they do it at the expense of nuance. They do it at the expense of
Yes.
balance. That
Yes.
it's not okay to go so far the other way that we're saying it's totally cool that I'm 400 pounds and I shouldn't change it. It's like, no, no, no. It's
Yes.
cool that you're 400 pounds, but you should probably still do something about that, but not tie your
And I
self-worth
had the
to it.
blood tests to back it up. Like my blood tests are perfect. Why would
Yeah.
I change? Yeah.
Right, right. Okay. So let's kind of pivot then. So for you, weight, or let me kind of paraphrase where we're at here. So weight for you has been a problem up down for a while as an adult, and you had some
Mostly up.
dieting when you were younger that did not leave a good impression for you at all. And it probably was
Correct.
compounded by the wedding because it's not like the weight regained
For
was just
sure.
some people at the office, which is probably for you carried a lot of emotional impact. And then you also had a psychiatrist that encouraged you, probably from a good place of like, hey, stop beating yourself up. In fact, I often will tell people the same things like, hey, if you're eating a bag of chips every day, stop saying it's not part of the plan. Just make it part of the
Yes.
plan. Just be okay with it.
Right.
Because
Yes.
usually that results in a person having more balance. But for you, it was like, okay, just let go.
It's like, I
Okay.
love everything. Let's eat it all. Yes.
Right. And so losing weight was more than just dropping numbers on a scale, than it sounds like for you, the notion. It's so much more than that.
It was about hating myself. Like, if I love myself when I'm eating, then if I'm losing weight, then I have to hate myself. I have to embrace all of the negative self-talk of you're so fat, you're so disgusting, all of those feelings that I had just kind of put in a drawer. They were still there, but I could ignore them. But to lose weight, I was going to have to bring all of that hatred right back out. I was unwilling to do that. I'm still unwilling to do that. It felt like an act of cruelty to even consider trying to lose weight.
So for you, losing weight was not looked at as an act of self-care in any way.
Definitely not. No, it was an act of
Okay.
self-loathing.
So that's, man, talk about a tough place to begin from. Now, for those that don't know, we're going to spoil the ending real quick on how this ends. So Shelly, how much weight have you lost so far?
I've lost 166 pounds.
Okay, so everybody to understand, like clearly something happened, something shifted. So
Yes.
Shelly, was there a single moment that sparked change for you, like a desire to do something different, or did it build over time?
I had a moment. I had a stroke.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was, like I have said, I had a lot of pain, body pain. And I, said goodnight to my husband and I went up to take a shower and I was feeling awfully fuzzy, but it wasn't even that unusual. And then I had gotten out of the shower. I was putting some lotion on my leg and I just ceased to exist. It felt like I died. It was like I turned off and then I turned back on. I had had music playing and the same song was playing. So it would have only been a few seconds that I was dead or whatever. But I knew something was horribly wrong. Now, even though I've said that I'm was very self-loving, I only had mirrors in the bathroom. So I was in the bedroom. I didn't know what I looked like. but I knew something was wrong. And so I went downstairs and said to my husband, Curtis, I think something's really wrong. And he was on a stream. And so he's looking at his computer and he turned and looked at me. And whatever he saw, he took one look at my face. He said, stream's over. And he clicked something on his computer. And then he picked up his phone and called 911. Something was radically wrong.
Wow. So, if I may ask, what happened? Like, what planned out? How did cliffhanger? What happened from that moment?
It was 2021 and it was during the pandemic. And I have all of my old journals. So I wrote in a couple of places and I had agoraphobia before the pandemic even started. So the pandemic was just, some people had extremely tragic experiences with the pandemic. I had an awesome experience with the pandemic because I had a perfect excuse. I was like, nobody's saying, why aren't you going out? I'm like, I am being good here. So the ambulance came and they took my blood pressure and I can't remember what the blood pressure was, but it was extremely high. They were going to let us drive me, but they were like, no, your blood pressure is too high. So I didn't want to leave my house. I also have claustrophobia. I'm very large. And they strapped me onto that rolling bed. And, you really can't, I don't know if you've ever been in an ambulance before, but you really can't move. And so that was extremely upsetting. And then as they were putting me into the ambulance, it was this big old boxy, not really old-timey ambulance, but it was not a brand new ambulance. It was boxy and the lifting mechanism was real jerky. And so on top of being terrified that that I've had this stroke, that I'm strapped down and I can't move, I was also thinking about how big I am. My God, I'm too big to be lifted into an ambulance. And then the same thing happened when they put me in the MRI machine. My arms touched the sides. And I remember you can't move. It takes like a half hour, an hour. And I remember laying there, you're not allowed to move. And so I'm facing up and my tears are coming down my face and they're pooling inside my ears. And I'm just laying there thinking, if I wasn't so big, maybe this wouldn't be so scary, because for some reason, that was the thought in my head the whole time. Like maybe if my arms weren't touching the sides, I wouldn't feel not just so terrified for my health, but also just so wrong in my body.
Wow. That sounds very traumatizing, actually. This is like a traumatic experience in many ways.
Yeah. The next day, the doctor, they had me in ICU. The next day, the doctor came into the room and he was not a very nice man, which ended up being a gift. But at the moment, it was not a good moment. He came in and he said, so you're 48 years old. You're far too young to have had a stroke. We don't know why you had the stroke other than, and he waved at my fat body. Let me see if we're in the camera. He just waved at my fat body. It was so dismissive. Okay, so you've been a fat person in the past. You know that you keep your guards up. You just expect that people are going to say something boneheaded. They're not even going to mean to be cruel, but they're just going to make some remark where you're just like, that's right. Here's a reminder that you're fat, as if you needed another reminder. Well, because I was so sick and I was so frightened, my guards were all the way down. So when he motioned at my fat body as if like, well, obviously this is why you had the stroke, it's just a direct hit, an absolute direct hit. When he left the room, he was walking out of the room and he's like, so, just lose 50, 60 pounds and watch your sodium. But like he said it in the same tone that he used to wave at my body. He said it like, well, and I know that you're not going to do either of those things. So, lose 50, 60 pounds, watch your sodium. And he walked out the door. I just felt so furious. I was so mad. And it was horrible. Like an hour after this happened, they sent me down to have one of those, what is it, the echocardiogram? Is that where they take the ultrasound of your heart? And the woman who did the echocardiogram also was not very nice. The nurses at this hospital were lovely, but the other people not so much. So she's like mashing on my heart and she's like making this face and she's mashing. And she's like, I just can't get the reading. And like, she's like mad at me. And I could tell that, she's not saying you're too damn fat for an echocardiogram, ma'am. But that was definitely the message I was getting. A few days later, when I got home, you have the My Chart now where you can see what they wrote. So on the echocardiogram, it said, unable to get a reading due to increased body habitus. And I was like, Googled, what does increased body habitus mean? It means she was too fat. She was too fat to have an echocardiogram. So that was a whole long list of things that were like, you got to change now.
So for you, like the size of yourself and the impacts of being that big, you felt them in an incredibly intense way in an incredibly short period of time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It was radical.
What was the conversation like? And you said like something's got to change. What did you set your sights on first?
It certainly wasn't weight loss. I have known people who have had weight loss surgery and put all the weight, they lost all this weight and gained it right back. I have known people who have done, the drugs. They've done all of these things where they've lost the weight and they've put it all back on. And so in my mind, you have said, what is it about being true to the person who believes it? What's that line? Can you think of what I'm talking about? Something can be, even if it's not true, if the person believes it, it's true in that person's head.
What the mind believes to be true is true as far as that mind is concerned.
In my mind, weight loss was not possible. Absolutely. So it was like true. So I certainly wasn't thinking I'm going to lose weight. But the doctor had said, watch your sodium. It was a lucky thing that he said that, because if he had used words like cut your calories or stop eating so much fat or watch your carbs or sugar or any of those words, I would have been like, no way. But he said sodium. Now I know quite a few regular sized, smaller and regular sized people who have high blood pressure have to watch their sodium. So that was what I started with. I cut my sodium.
So for you, sodium did not have any stories added to that word. It was just
Correct.
sodium. And it
Just
was
sodium.
not something, it was more neutral. It not negatively charged because there was no diet trauma or wounds
Right.
attached to that word.
Exactly.
Versus if they'd used carbs, for you, carbs, diet, speak, diet, bad,
Exactly.
self-hate, don't.
100%.
Okay. So okay. So when you started focusing on your sodium, what happened? What were the ripple effects of this?
Well, I would love to tell you that it was just smooth sailing from there on in, but it wasn't, because if you look at a nutrition label, sodium is in everything. It's in bread, it's in milk. I mean, it is in
It's an essential
everything.
nutrient.
Yeah. And so that was also a gift, because if I had said, all right, well, I'm just going to lose some weight, I don't like to cook. So what I would have done in the past or then, I would have bought a whole bunch of lean cuisines and been like, these are disgusting and I'm starving. And I would have given up in an instant. But with sodium, because everything that I ate, like I ate multigrain bread and deli meat and things where I was like, this is neutral food. Because I had to watch my sodium, I couldn't eat any of those things. So I had to quickly find anything that I could eat. And there were so many days in the beginning when, I would eat, what I thought was fine to eat. And I'd get to the end of the day and I'd be out of sodium. So then I would for dinner, I would have unsalted cashews, which, if you ever want to really just milk your bad feelings, just be like, here I am eating my little handful of unsalted cashews. Everything sucked.
So
It was just the worst.
this is pretty cool because you inadvertently learned how to manage and plan food to meet micro or macronutrient targets, but not because of calories, not because of protein or carbs. It was something more neutral for you, but you were picking up the skill of managing your food.
I was, but it was a disaster in the beginning because I didn't know
As it is
about
for most.
protein, I suppose. Yeah. But I didn't know about protein. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what doesn't have a lot of sodium? Cereal. And yes, dairy milk has a lot of sodium, but coconut milk has almost no sodium. So I was eating a lot of frosted mini wheats with coconut milk. Freaking delicious meal. But I was so hungry. I was so hungry all the time. It just, yeah, that was
Because it wasn't
there
carrying you.
was wasn't carrying me. There was so much. You talk about how we need to embrace failure. But before you hear that thought, when it's just failure, 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 it's a bad feeling to just be like, okay, so I'm going to keep failing and finally I'm just going to die because I keep getting it wrong and I'm trying to save my life here, but I keep getting it wrong. So I can't give up because if I give up, I'm just going to die. It was it was very black and white, but it was a dark, dark place to start.
But it doesn't sound like you would have had a hope's chance of getting through it if you were trying to lose weight and diet
For sure.
in the traditional sense.
Correct.
You needed something small, something doable, something that just didn't feel like any sort of a diet, so to speak.
Right. Right.
You know, it's interesting because I think to mine now, like the difference with you and like I had very much set my sights on day zero of become thin. Like I knew I was going to lose weight, but I very much had a similar feeling of yours of like I'm not doing any more diets. Like I'm not doing these anymore because they've never worked. Like they always leave me worse off than they find me. And I was looking for that like that. What's that thing I like how we're talking about it here in terms of neutral. But I was looking at it more
Yeah.
of like, what are the things that the skinny people do that doesn't seem to be a diet thing? And I was just like, well, the whole eating hungry, when hungry thing, it's like, and they probably just eat less. I don't know what less, but just less. And so for me, I had to start simple because I had such deep diet wounds. And it sounds like for you, you stumbled on your own version of start simple so that the failures
Yeah.
don't hurt so damn bad because you're going to fail
Yeah.
a lot. If you've never managed your food, you run
Right.
out of food there's too much day left at the end of the food, or for you, too much day left at the end of
Yeah.
the sodium.
Right. What finally, I mean, there was still a lot to go, but the first turning point was when one of my cousins who had been on her own weight loss journey told me about MyFitnessPal. I'd never heard of MyFitnessPal. I was just writing things down on a piece of paper, because I'm old and didn't know about apps. But then it was great as far as sodium was concerned, but MyFitnessPal forces you to put in a calorie target and a weight target. And I didn't want to do either of those things, but you have to with MyFitnessPal. So I was just like, well, for shits and giggles, let's go ahead and put in the 50 pounds that this doctor had told me to put in. And so that was what I ended up doing. And it actually gave me more calories than I expected it to give me because I wasn't on a weight loss journey. I was on a sodium journey. And so it gave
Mm.
me 22, almost 2,300 calories to eat, to maintain. But I lost almost 50 pounds eating, quote unquote, at what MyFitnessPal told me was maintenance calories. Obviously, it wasn't maintenance calories, but I was like blown away.
So you lost 50 pounds, but you weren't wanting to lose weight. So what was your mind telling you when you began to realize you're getting smaller?
Well, so the people around me were all noticing that I was getting smaller. I was pretending like none of this is happening because it was like, well, if we don't notice that I'm losing weight, then when I put it all back on, it's not humiliating. So, but my mother in particular, I have and had agoraphobia. And so my husband had gone to a cookout and I stayed at home, of course. And so all the people at the cookout are telling my husband, oh my gosh, Shelly just looks so good. She's really lost a lot of weight. And so my husband came home and he told me, and he's like, they can all tell you how excited they are for you and how proud they are of you. But I know how much you hate that. So I can't say any of those things. That is the God's honest truth. He literally said that. I can't say any of those things to you because I know how much you hate it.
Was he like doing it as a joke, or did he deadpan not
Oh,
understand
no,
what he was doing?
dead serious. He was dead serious.
Oh, that's funny. So what'd you think when you heard that?
Like, I was like, my husband is such a good man. He knows me so well because I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want anybody looking at my body. Please don't look at my body. And they're looking at my body and he knew I didn't want that. And so he was just, yeah.
So when did you said you went down 50 pounds. So that sounds like there was a scale involved somewhere in there.
Yes, I bought my first bathroom scale at the same time. What did I buy? I can't remember what it was. There was something that I needed to buy, and I also bought a bathroom scale, but it was like a couple of months into the journey that because I looked over my Amazon purchases and I was like, oh, look, that's where I bought my first scale. I had no idea how much I weighed. Every one of my past weights that had been recorded were recorded at the doctor's office. That's how I know my
Okay,
highest recorded weight was 340.
so this for you was a new thing to add weighing yourself at home. What was that experience
Oh,
like when
yeah.
you first started doing that?
It really wasn't that bad because I wasn't trying to lose weight. So it was
Mm.
just, you have talked a lot about the scale is data, it is neutral. I found that to be the case just kind of on my own because I wasn't trying to lose weight. And I have this, another awesome thing about watching your sodium is that I don't have those big ups and downs that a lot of people on weight loss journeys tend to have. I'm pretty darn, within a few tenths of a pound pretty much every time I weigh myself. And so it was just always creeping down. It was just kind of cool. It was neutral and or cool.
So it wasn't bringing a lot of negativity for you because you didn't have this pressure that like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to have gone down 2 pounds and I went down 1 pound. That's not good
Exactly.
enough. Like you,
Not in the
you had no
slightest. Nope.
schedule to get behind of or ahead
None.
of. You were just always on
Correct.
schedule.
Exactly. There was no schedule. The
Why
schedule
I
does not
think you
exist.
made it through this is you focused on what you were doing, not the results. Like you had a result
Oh,
because clearly you
for
said
sure.
50 pounds, I'll put it in there. But then you just immediately forgot about it.
Yes, because I didn't really mean it. Like,
Right.
it
It's
was
just
one
a
of those things
number.
like, well, MyFitnessPal says I got to put in a weight number. Like, whatever. Here's your 50 pounds. Like, it just felt like, I'm saying this to make you happy, as opposed to I'm saying it because I mean it. As was what I was doing with MyFitnessPal. Like, well, you say I have to say this. That's your issue. Here's the number, and that was it.
So you lose 50 pounds. Did the journey transform? Like you've lost the 50 pounds the doctor told you to lose. I mean, I know you lost more than that, so you didn't stop. Like what happened?
I found you. That's
How did you
true.
find me?
I was spending a
Do you
lot of
remember?
time watching TikTok. I just found
Okay,
you on
TikTok. Okay.
TikTok and it just showed you to me. You talked about I think the first video of yours that I saw was the one where you're standing in front of the graph and, you can hold steady, but most people are just creeping up, which had been my experience. And you just talked a lot about things that, the neutrality of the scale is a perfect example where you were saying these things that had already been my experience. And I was like, this guy isn't saying I need to hate myself. He's not saying, do you remember those? I don't know, you're younger than I am, but there used to be these commercials on TV all the time where there would be a skinny woman standing next to her before picture and she'd go, that used to be me. And like she would say it with this like, oh, look at this disgusting person. You didn't have any of that anywhere. It was so like, we're going to change a few habits and we're going to, like it was such a like, it wasn't emotionally charged at all. And so I could just keep following you. And in addition to that, I was feeling better. I was feeling healthier and I was feeling stronger and happier. Like all of these things were happening as the weight was coming down, where it was, it got to a point where I couldn't even pretend anymore. I was like, I'm not on a weight loss journey. But I did get to a point where it was like, actually, I think I actually am on a weight loss journey and it's going really well. Like that was terrifying, but I was able to hold steady and keep
That's really
going.
powerful that you thought that, though, that it was going really well. Because so many people, what they do, they make the mistake of setting off with a timeline and a timetable and all this pressure. And then it's so easy to feel like I'm not doing well. But you didn't have a
Right.
timetable. You didn't have a timeline. You just were,
Nope.
I'm changing and I'm starting
Yeah.
here and I'll add something as I go. And it makes it easy to just focus on, it's going great. Like,
I am here to
I'm
save my
better than
life.
I was.
Yeah. Now, where a problem did come in and where you helped so much was that I don't even know if this will show up, but I had up this book of Facebook posts. This is the picture on the back. I weighed 248 pounds in this picture. I felt like Miss America. I was like, look at how beautiful I am. Oh my God. I was ready to quit. I was like, I've lost this weight. Everybody says I look amazing. I feel like $1,000,000. I look like $1,000,000. I'm done. And where you just did such a favor for me because you talked about how a lot of people, when they start the journey, they're running away from something terrible. And when they get far enough away from the something terrible, they stop because now they're not so traumatized. They're not so upset about whatever the terrible thing is. And you said you have to have something wonderful that you're running toward. And that, because honestly, I would have stopped at 248 pounds. I felt so good. And so, anyway, that was a
What was
huge
that?
help.
What did you start running towards?
Less, even less pain. Like, gosh, all of the swelling in my ankles is gone. Like, this is amazing. Like, I wonder what else I could do. And there were just so many. I could stand on one foot, like one of the PT people when they let you out of the hospital. They want you to stand at the countertop with your hands like near the countertop, so that if you start to fall, and then just lift one foot, just stand there on one foot and see if you can stand there for 10 seconds. Well, I'm like, well, let's see if I can just do it for a minute. Like, there were just all of these things that I couldn't have dreamed of doing at 325 pounds, where I was just like, look at this. I can even like kind of wave my arms while I'm standing on one foot. It was really cool to just, and I didn't hurt so much. It was amazing.
So you started setting your sights on what else can I do? Like look what I've done. This is evidence I could probably do more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything
I was,
was there
I was
anything
super,
you'd set your sights on? Was there anything
please.
you had set your sights on that took time to get after this 50 pounds? Like, did you set any other mini goals along the way?
Yeah. We're on the same headspace. So I very purposefully wanted to have this as my background when I was talking to you. This room, when we bought this house in 2008, every single wall was painted how I described despair off brown. It was just this not quite white, not quite brown, just despair. It was just the color of despair. And this room very much was the color of despair. What I've set my sights on is, okay, well, we can't afford to like change the layout of this house or update the bathrooms or any of those things, but we can afford to paint every single surface yellow and peach and put pretty flower pictures in the back. Like, we can just perk this place up and have some happiness. And that I did this. I did this room myself. This thing behind me is just a scarf that I got off of Etsy, and I because I have no skills. So I used duct tape and a stapler to duct tape these two pieces of plywood together. And then I wrapped that in a blanket and put this over top of it. And I mean, it looks like I've spent a lot of money, but it was $43. It was just,
That's the best
yeah,
kind, though.
the best
Well,
kind.
so
Yeah.
you started using your body to
Yes.
improve your world, which made you enjoy
Yes.
your world more, but you also were getting more movement in.
100%. Yes. And I
Did
like
you
my
notice
husband
any
more
limitations? Did you
because I'm
notice
not
any
waiting for him.
limitations did you notice any limitations as you were doing this work? Like, because I know for me, when I was losing weight, like, oh, this is great. And then I'd go do something and I'd have this reminder that like, oh, I'm not done. Like, not even close. I've come a long
Yeah,
way, but this is still very hard. Did you have any of those moments?
for sure. But the biggest one for that was with leaving my house, because I suffer with agoraphobia. I'm coming out of it, slowly, but I'm coming out of it. But by this point, you had started the guild, and we had started using Marco Polo. And there were all of these people on Marco Polo walking down the street, talking to their cameras. And I was like, I want to do that. But I wasn't ready. And so my first videos in Marco Polo were walking around my yard. We're just walking around like that. We've got a detached garage in the side yard. And then I started walking just a little bit farther and a little bit farther. And I've got videos where where I stop in the middle of talking and I'm holding on to a electric post or whatever the heck you call them, just because I'm freaking the F out. And those were my limitations. I want to make my world a little bit bigger. And it was really slow going, but it's here now. I can walk anywhere in my town and I'm fine.
So after the 50 pounds were lost, you found me. You're starting, you were describing some of these other changes you made. Were there other intentional changes you made to how you were approaching food, to how you're approaching movement, where it was like, okay, I'm not doing this to like not have a stroke again. I'm doing this because I believe this will lead to losing more weight or in some way. When did that shift start occurring?
Well, I got very lucky in that somebody in the guild mentioned two things: the Ninja Creamy and Supernatural, which is like a dancing game that you play in the Oculus headset. I had been very stalled out with my weight loss. But then I found the Ninja Creamy, and oh my goodness, that was life-changing. And then the same thing just a couple of months later with the Oculus. Those two things together, my weight loss had been pretty well stalled, and it just took off. It was so exciting. And then once you're intentionally losing weight and it's working, that's That was a really cool feeling, which is silly to say that when I'm already 50 pounds into the journey, but that was true for
Well,
me.
but there is a difference between the weight loss happening and it's now I'm trying to intentionally fiddle with things to make that occur. Because I reflect back to my journey because I'm coming up on the anniversary. Next month is the anniversary of when I began mine, which is exciting. So 6 years. But I think that first 6 months, really, I was aware I was losing weight. I was aware I wanted to lose weight. But if you would have walked up to me and asked me what I was thinking, I would have like, I'm losing weight, but I don't think about that. Like if I go read my
Right.
journals and watch my video journals, of which I have many, I
Mhm.
don't talk about my weight loss that often. But what
Right.
I do is I talk about the things I was doing. And all the things I was doing was creating weight loss. But I was like, I'm working
Yeah.
out. Why? Because I want to be in shape. Because I want to prove to myself I can make myself do something. Proving to
Yeah.
myself that I'm in charge of
Yes.
me was more important than losing weight.
Make a promise to yourself and keep it. You've said that a lot, and
Yeah.
I love that.
And when I'd made it to January, and I'm like, I've made it through my first holiday season and I didn't gain 10 pounds. I'm like,
Right.
well, man, what can I do now? Like, I love how you
Yeah.
described because that's a very similar thing I did. It's like I've had some success from little things. What happens if I like do some intentional conscious shifts? And again,
Yes.
it supercharged it. But I remember for me though, I hit my periods where the scale didn't move much after it had been moving with my intentionality. We might call them a plateau or
Mhm.
a stall or something. Did you have
Right.
any of those?
I had quite a few. Not a I shouldn't say quite a few, but I had a few. It's a good thing and a bad thing because it's a good thing in that I don't get upset. I'm very blasé about the whole thing. But it's a bad thing because there have been times, right now being one of them, where it's like, well, the scale really isn't moving too much. And I still have, I'm not finished with my journey and I'm still just like, meh, that's fine. Which I have to fight that feeling to be like, it is fine, yes. We're also still going. We're not giving up here. And that has happened multiple times along the way where it's like, no, we're not done. We're not, a doctor is still saying you could lose a little more weight here. So,
For you and I, just because you've been in my program now for a little bit, we've had interactions. I know that there have been times where you know the notion of like where do I stop, how far do I go? You've worked through that battle, even believing what's possible. So it's interesting, and I know we're going to get to the end, but since you bring it up, I think it'd be interesting to. I'd love to hear what you're thinking. What's been that thought process shift? Because you've really gone from a place of, I don't want to lose weight. Like, why would I want to do that? To now you've already lost a lot of weight and you're like, oh, I'm not quite done yet. Like, how did you get there?
slowly. Um, yeah, when you started the Becoming Thin podcast, I was like, Becoming Thin? I was one of those people. But it was kind of funny because I'm like, Becoming Thin. And then I'm like looking down, like, maybe I guess I kind of am thin. I guess I did become thin. So yeah, there was
No,
that.
you're not becoming, you became.
I became
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I guess
you
that's
already did
okay.
it.
It has been, it's that every step of the way I can look at, is my life better and bigger and healthier than it was even 3 months ago? And the answer is always yes. Every bit of the way, even though my wins are small, I'm not like running 5Ks or anything like that. Even though my wins, they're small, but they're noticeable. I can look and be like, this isn't just that my life is better than it was 3.5 years ago. My life is better than it was 3 months ago. I'm stronger than I was. I had, my collarbones are better. Like all of these things where it's like, that's better. I can keep going because it's still getting better. It's really that simple for me. It's still getting better.
Now, I want to ask the next question, and I genuinely have no idea what you think about this because it's not
Boy,
anything you and I have had a chance to interact before. But when I have conversations with a lot of people, they talk about this like I have to run away from being fat and run towards becoming thin. I have to run towards something on the other end. What ends up happening is a lot of our whys, our reasons for losing weight, we accomplish along the way. I want to be stronger. All right, I'm stronger. I want to be noticeably stronger. I'm noticeably stronger. Like I want to
hmm
fit in great clothes. I want to go buy them off the rack. Well, once you get to kind of become a larger medium, you can do that. And it's like, why would I keep going? Why would I
could
keep
care less.
pushing?
I
And
couldn't care less. Yeah.
yeah. And so one of the things I run into with people is they'll say a version of this phrase. It seems kind of vain, but like I just kind of want to like what I see in the mirror. Like I hear some variant of that from so many people because there's this wall that the person hits of like, I'm now beginning to allow myself to admit that I like what I see and I want to keep this feeling going. Have you had any version of this in your journey yet?
Yeah, I love what I see in the mirror. Although my first reaction one day, I was looking in the mirror and I started to cry because I looked like the girl that I looked like in high school. And I was like, this was what I was supposed to look like. And I just kind of fell apart. Like it felt just like such a loss. So there was that. But honest to God, I spent so much time looking in the mirror. It's so ridiculous where it's like, I have one of those faces where people just talk to me and people will say, you're a very beautiful woman, strangers. And that's very nice, but it's me. I'm just like, God damn, I look really good. So
No, but it's important. Like when we finally
yeah.
discover ourselves in the mirror, I love what you said. I realized I had to grieve my
Yes.
lost years that I could have
Yeah.
spent feeling like I feel now and looking
Yeah.
how I look now. I missed
And
them.
not being mad at her, but grieving.
Yeah, it was a grieving process. I'm not
Hmm.
mad at my old self. I know my old self did the best he knew how. It was fine.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
if I could send him a note back in time, I would, but I can't. But I did have to grieve it. And I even went through a little bit of a bitterness phase. I was a little bitter at old me for a minute. I had to forgive myself for it. And I mean, it was a active process of forgiving my past for that. Once I saw myself in the mirror and realized I know how I got here and I can stay here.
Yeah. Yeah. I am in control of my weight. That's one of my affirmations. I control my weight. Like, that's up to
Yeah,
me.
I very much at a certain point felt like I'm not dieting. I'm just managing my weight like I manage my finances. I just manage it.
Yeah.
I'm never going to stop.
We'll get to
It'll
that point someday.
change. Right. So, you mentioned at one point though, like a community. And so what role did a community play in helping you make this journey and actually get this far to the other side of it?
So in the past, everybody that I have ever known who either was losing weight or who had lost weight. Now this is my own toxic self as well. I put a lot of toxicity onto them, but I felt like I was getting a lot of toxicity from them as well. Like, well, we're doing it because I hate myself, and I would never eat XYZ or whatever. And the normal sized people who would, like helpfully try to point out how fat you are. And, I've always just found that if I eat everything in moderation, it's fine. And I was just hated that. Having a community of people who are earnestly on the journey, earnest and sincere. And sometimes it's going great, sometimes it ain't going so great, like very real about what they're going through. That matters. It matters a lot. And it helps that we all kind of are singing from the same hymn book because we're all listening to what you have to say. And so that's helpful. And it's just
Well,
wonderful to be
so
around
for
people where
you,
you're like, I really like these people.
what I'm hearing is that it normalized the struggle and made it easier to get through the hard parts
Yeah. It makes you
because
feel
you see
like,
others going through it.
this is a good one. Yeah. Because we have this Marco Polo group, we're able to share a lot of our pasts and our realities and whatnot. And we found that there's all of these commonalities. So Lori, one of the guildies, she and I have weirdly almost identical pasts, as well as like the ways that our mind works, where we've both felt like I'm just uniquely broken, I'm just uniquely bad, I'm uniquely wrong, yada yada yada. And because we were talking about this one time and she said, I feel like that should be a merch idea for Chris, is like the Guild of Champions, I am not uniquely fucked up. I'm like, I
Actually,
would wear that shirt.
I
I'm
like
not
that.
uniquely fucked
I
up.
like that. I like that. I mean, but so you get to find other people that share your struggle. And as someone that's
Yeah.
gotten to coaching people, I have also
Yes.
seen there is a lot of shared baggage where it's like, hey,
Yes.
that special bag that you're toting around, I know
Yes.
50 other people, their bag looks just like
It
yours.
is so comforting to be around people who are like, that has been our excuse our whole life. No, this terrible thing happened to me. That's why I can't lose weight. And then it's like, wow, well, that same terrible thing happened to this person and she's losing weight. Maybe not fast, but she's doing it. It's so comforting to see people who are not, we've got a bunch of guildies who I just look at them and I'm like, they have got their shit together. And so I don't look at them and think that's who I'm going to model. I'm looking at the people who are like, oh my God, I'm such a freaking basket case all the time. And they're losing weight. Those people, I'm like, I want to watch you because if they can do it, I can keep going. If they can keep going, that's lovely. And we're doing it. It's not just, like we're not accountability buddies. We're sincerely in this. We're sincerely doing it.
Now, what also, because, and why I want to ask this too, and for everybody listening, of course, you come join my programs, but it's just any program I think is important because having people help you and support you and challenge you is important along this journey because our cognitive biases are so high. So, Shelly, for you, what role has having myself and others within a community, myself as a coach and others as a community part, challenging you? How has that helped you achieve your success?
You have knocked me out of my comfort zone a lot more than I've wanted to be knocked out of my comfort zone, sometimes radically so, as you know. It doesn't feel good in the moment. It feels kind of shitty in the moment, but there's such necessary pushes. That is what I have found is so important about having a coach and the guildies who have their acts together. When they push me, it's like, I hate this. Don't do that. But I can sit with it. There's no time, no timeline or anything. And so it's like, I can sit with it and marinate with it for a month if I need to, 10 months if I need to. And eventually I'm like, I can hear it and feel it and then do it, which is really good. It's
I
really
like what
nice.
you said is important, being able to sit with it. And that was something I struggled with when I got into coaching is I knew for myself, some things, once I discovered it, I could pretty much make the change right away. Some things I needed
Right.
just to stew on it for a
lot
few
of
months
time.
before I was
Yes.
willing to make the change. Like
For
some
sure.
things I had to sort of grieve, like, I'm going to stop living this way. I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to do it soon, but I'm not ready to do it this week. But I really now think of it like now that I'm a stepdad and I've gotten to watch my stepdaughter grow through toys. And I've got to watch that process of giving away toys. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
That's a
gosh.
good
When
analogy.
first time I saw her do it, I was like, that's exactly how I felt. I mean, the emotional journey she went through is how I felt about my video games. It's like there came a point where it's like, I'm ready to outgrow these, but I'm not quite ready yet. Like,
And
maybe
it's
just a little bit more.
uncomfortable.
Let me get it out of the box. But then eventually I put it away and I've never touched it again. Kind of
Yes.
like with the toys. And I think this journey, it's important that a person is given the space
Yes.
to
Yes.
take the time when needed, but not getting so comfortable they stop.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
But I
that's
baby
important.
myself. Man, I am just barely inching along, but I have inched along for 166 pounds. So I
Well,
kind of feel
I
like
mean, it's
take all the
working.
time you need. Yeah.
Right. It's funny. Like in the beginning of my journey, if somebody said it was going to take 26 months, I would have thought that was a long time. When I got to the other side of it, 26 months didn't feel like that long. And now that I'm 6 years into it, it really doesn't feel like that long. I mean,
Right.
I've put more years
Exactly.
than that into a crappy TV show.
Right. Yeah.
So for you, for me, I remember there was a point where in my mind's eye, I saw big Chris. Then there was a part where I was confused. And then I saw my current thin Chris. What do you see now?
Now I see thin Shelly very much. Yeah.
Was there a
But I've kind
moment
of been
that
seeing
shifted or
thin
was it
Shelly for a
gradual?
while. No, it wasn't gradual at all. It was like I said, I held up that picture of me at 248 pounds. I kind of felt like, God, I look like thin Shelly. Even there, just because I never imagined that any weight loss was possible. And so to have had this, any weight loss at all was just like, wow, look at that. And so I bought a full length mirror probably a year ago, maybe a couple of years ago. And it's in the bedroom and I would walk around the bed to like leave the room and see myself in the full length mirror. And there was a period of months where every time I saw myself in the full length mirror, I was surprised, like, whoa, hey, look at her. So that took time I'm not surprised by my reflection anymore. But there was a period of months where I was just like, look at those legs. Oh my God. It's very exciting.
I remember the first time somebody took a picture of me. I'm like, when did I get so skinny? Where did
Yes.
my ass go?
Yes.
Like, it's
Oh,
gone.
God. Well, yeah, it is.
Because somebody taking a picture of me
It's
from
something.
behind, and I
Right.
couldn't see that when I was losing weight, and I was
Yeah.
like, but it was, yeah, it's crazy how your brain gets updated as you go
It really
along,
does.
or catch
Really
a
cool.
reflection. Oh yeah, those early days of when my brain still saw the big me, but I would see skinny me
Right.
in the mirror, or like
Huh?
a reflection on a window as I'm walking down the street or something. Oh, it was always so jarring.
It was.
Did you ever
Yes.
have any moments where you're almost like, I can't believe this is my face? Did you ever have any of those?
No.
Oh,
No,
I had a few of those.
I just never, I can't believe this is my face. This is the vain thing where I'm just like, look at my face. My
Mm.
goodness. That's
Love
been
that.
what
I love
I've
that.
done.
So
You're
what
probably not supposed to be like, God damn, I look so good, but I have done that
no,
a lot.
I think you should. Are you kidding me? Like my wife and we talk about this all the time. We regularly flex and preen in the mirror,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
regularly. And I mean, we just put another mirror in our room for that very purpose. Like I didn't realize that it's not a coincidence that most people that are really big, not all, but most, don't like looking at themselves in the
Right.
mirror, and
For
a lot of
sure.
people that are on the
Yeah.
opposite end of the spectrum do.
Yeah.
I think it's
The other thing
back.
though,
I don't.
yeah. The other thing though is that if another person told me how pretty I am, I'd be like, all right, we've entered creepy territory now. But I can tell myself I look pretty just as much as I want to. All day, every day, like, wow, you look so good, Shelly.
Honestly,
Oh my God.
it's weird to think that, but for me, I thought when I started, I was going to be more interested in other people's opinions of my appearance. By the
Yes.
time I got to the other end, no, the person's opinion I cared about the most was mine of
Yeah.
myself. And it made it better because now if somebody's like, they don't care, they don't like how I look, they don't like how I dress, they don't like, I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay.
I don't care.
Yep.
I mean, I
Yeah,
like it.
exactly. Right.
So what beliefs or assumptions had to die or be gotten rid of for you to make it to where you are?
Big one was I have some violence in my past. And those people were very winner oriented. Like I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be a country club person. Like these people who were winners. And because I have such a bad experience with those people, for most of my adult life, those winner types, they're the worst people on earth. And I had to kill that. I had to kill that to follow you. To be like, here's this guy. He is objectively a winner. He is objectively, I always call it the Tony Robbins shit. Oh God, fucking Tony Robbins shit. And I'm like, Chris is actually into all that Tony Robbins shit. I had to get to a point where it was like, winners are not uniquely bad. Winners are not uniquely anything. They're, shades of gray, just like everybody else. That had to die. It had to die to be like, well, okay. There's more nuance here than I've allowed ever. It's a big deal.
What about the winter thing's interesting because I think people now would look at you at this journey and say,
Yes,
you're winning.
that's
How does
terrifying.
that feel?
That's been
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Yes.
Is it because you're not used to seeing yourself through that light?
Right. I felt like part of the reason that I didn't like winners was that I couldn't always predict what they were going to do because they were so good at lying. They were just so good at hiding what they were thinking. And the people who were not winners, man, you can tell what they're thinking. Whether you like them or not, they're not hiding from you. They're showing you exactly what they think. And I'm like, I can hide. I could use my powers for evil if I wanted to. That's really uncomfortable to me. You could use your powers for evil if you wanted. That's alarming. Like, don't give me that power. What if I did the wrong thing?
Right, right. Oh, it's a fair thing. How do you live life differently now than before? Like, what are some of the biggest differences?
I move a lot. I have so much possibility. I'm always looking around like, okay, that basement is full of so much garbage and nobody is lining up to empty out my basement for me, but I'm strong enough. And so I'm always like, I just started a yard work project where our lawnmower guy hits these bushes and I'm like, and the bushes are damaged. And I'm like, okay, I need to put some mulch around those bushes. I'm not hiring somebody to put mulch around my bushes. I'm putting the mulch around. Like there's those kinds of things where I'm like, oh, I could do that. I would have been like, somebody needs to put mulch around those bushes, but I never would have had the thought, I could put some mulch around those bushes. That's a radical change for me and a great one. I love that change to be like, I can do anything I want.
I love that. I mean, because that's literally made you more capable and also more
Yes.
independent because now you don't need to rely on somebody else to do it. You can do it.
Radically. Yeah, I said earlier that I like my husband so much more because I'm not like, why aren't his priorities exactly the same as mine? He can have his own priorities. It doesn't matter. I got these priorities. That mulch, it's getting out. Yeah, it's awesome.
So, how would past you react if they saw how you've turned out?
I think she would have an array of emotions that would take her a long time to process because she would be so stunned and amazed. But I think she would also think, oh my God, I've wasted so much time. That has been a biggie. Oh my God, I've wasted so much time. And I believed for so long that none of these changes were possible. And so then to be like, I could have made these changes anytime I wanted to. I could have made them when I was 30. I could have been a more fun parent. There's all these things that I could have done if I would have just tried, but I was too afraid to even try. I think I would have an array of emotions, some of which are over the moon happy, but also under the ocean grieving.
Mm, mm. Like that. That's a real answer. Like, because I think if myself could see it, there would be this sense of excitement. It's like, oh my gosh, but then this like, but it's not possible. Like,
Right.
because I
Oh,
think to
yeah.
myself before, the notion of looking, acting, walking, feeling, living the way I live now was a dream, but it was a dream I wasn't even really willing to admit to myself I dreamt.
Right. I always thought that if I ever lost weight, it would be because they came up with a cure for obesity. Like they're just going to find a cure for obesity and then I'll be thin. But that didn't happen. I mean, there's more tools now, but there still isn't a cure for obesity that has, that
Well, right,
isn't,
because it's such
you
a
have to eat less food.
multifaceted thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so, I use the phrase and talk about it as the core 4 goals of like person, working for thin, healthy, happy, and in shape, all 4. What does that mean to you? Part of why I like these words is sure, you could go to Oxford and look up the literal definition there, but if you start looking around, these words get used differently. They don't have a universal usage in many ways. In
Yeah.
shape is a relative term. All of
Yes.
them are. So what do they mean to you now at this point in the journey? Thin, healthy, happy, in shape.
They mean I look and feel like $1,000,000. It's really that simple. Like, how do you feel? I feel great. How do you look? I look great. I am thin, happy, healthy, and in shape. I'm freaking awesome.
All right, let's wrap up near towards the end. So I want to reflect on your beginning self through 2 lenses. One of them is we'll start with the one that's in the constructive, the helpful. If you could give advice to anybody that's like your old self, but to your old self, what would it be? And it could even be something like do what you did, but like reassurance. But what would you say?
I know you're terrified and I know you're resistant. But the good on the other side of this, and not even on the other side, the good really soon into this journey, it's better than you can imagine. It's so good and it's not too late. I swear it's not too late.
And what would you say to a person that is worried of the sacrifices they'll have to make to obtain results like yours?
There are sacrifices. You're going to change. You're going to be different. You're still you. But there's going to be things that you really do have to let go. But you let them go so gradually that you don't feel like now I'm a whole different person. Years go by and you're like, wow, I'm a really different person. But day to day, you're the same person. Just like the number on the scale, it is so slow and so gradual. But the other side is awesome.
You feel like the things you let go of and sacrifice, you've been able to replace them with equal or greater things?
Yes. Yeah. I've just got better coping mechanisms now. I feel like my only coping mechanism for so long was food. And food is still sometimes a coping mechanism. I know it's not a good thing to admit to on my weight loss podcast.
It's
but
still a struggle, but yeah, I mean, I struggle with this sometimes too.
there's just a million other things where it's like it's not just have a cup of tea or go for a walk. It's like look at that shitty furniture in the basement and paint it and cover it in glitter. You could just do anything. Like think of something that just sounds like fun. That's a good coping mechanism. Like just go have a nice time. Well,
And the
however you
beauty is
define that.
it has a ripple effect because it has all this movement, and then
Yes.
you get the project when you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And my house looks so pretty now. Yeah.
I also like to reflect on our old selves. You were mentioning it earlier. So many people look to their old self with a sense of disgust. I don't. I mean, don't get me
No.
wrong. I have no desire to live like my old self again. But I
Right.
look at it as like my old self made a change when all the evidence said that it wasn't going to work. All his evidence and all his beliefs, everything as far as he was concerned, this wasn't possible. And yet he did it
Right.
anyway. So I
Yes.
feel nothing but, I feel at this point in my life, I've had to get myself here, but like nothing but gratitude. So what positive things would you say to your past self that's beginning to make the changes?
Can you rephrase the question? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
So after you've decided to make changes,
Mhm.
what words of encouragement would you give your old self?
I would say that there were dark days, particularly in the beginning, but that the days got better. I would also say to my old self, like, because I'm a singer. I'm actually a pretty good singer. I'm a terrible ukulele player, but I'm a pretty good singer. And when I was bigger, I performed open mic nights pretty regularly. And I could point to things in my old life that were like, well, but look at how good my life is. I'm doing all of these things. That is all still true. You are still vibrant and charismatic and fun and exciting, but now your body looks the same way you want it to, the same way that it seemed back then. Does that make sense? I'm maybe not saying it very well, but I felt like I could at least pretend that I was doing great back in those old days. Now I'm not pretending. Now I actually am great.
Feels real,
Yeah, it feels
feels
real. Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah, you know the Taylor Swift song about, it's her birthday. I'm so depressed. I act like it's my birthday. I don't do that anymore. Like, no, if
Mm.
I'm depressed, you're going to know I'm depressed. If I'm acting like it's my birthday, it's my birthday. Like, I'm sincere. I'm sincerely showing you who I am, which is really nice. It's really
It's
nice.
nice to be congruent in that way. Like I'm living true to my feelings, to my states. I'm not putting
Yeah.
on a mask to pretend I'm
Right.
someone I'm not to change how you think
Yeah.
about me.
Right.
I think that's wonderful. And last question. If there was somebody out there that doesn't think it's possible that they could change, that they could become something more, they could transform their body into something more comfortable to live in, that they could transform their relationship with themselves. If somebody didn't believe it was possible, what would you say to anybody like that? As somebody that
I would
used to
say,
feel that way.
I would say lie to yourself. Like do it behind your own back. Like, if you talk about parking at the back of the parking lot. I changed sodium. Like there's going to be a couple of things where it's like, don't, I'm not even trying to lose weight. I'm just parking at the back of the parking lot. And we're not going to tell her that we're like radically changing our lives. We're just going to, she's going to be in ignorance and we're going to go over here and do this thing. You can go a long way, quote unquote, not on a weight loss journey, but just like on a weight loss journey. When you look back, you're like, I was on a weight loss journey, but this, the girl on the inside had no idea she was on a weight loss journey. We don't need to tell her. We'll just let her be in her ignorance. Yeah.
And for those listening, some people are going to want to know your sort of your age and your height and everything and weights because people like to know to compare for results. So, what was your age and height at your heaviest, and what's your age and weight now, so people know that story to compare?
I was 48, almost 49 when I had my stroke, and I weighed 225 pounds. Today, I am 5'7". Today, I am 52. I'll be 53 in October. I am 159 pounds. I waver between 159 and 160, but it's mostly 159. Yeah. I'm
Wow,
great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a transformation. And but I love it's clearly more than just a transformation on the scale, which is
Yes.
what
I
we're
care
looking
about that.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The
Yeah.
scale, whatever. It does not tell at all the whole story. Just like a little keyhole of it, the story.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, Shelly, thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. This was an honor.
Well, you're very welcome. I said I'm excited that people are going to get to hear this because there's a lot of your story that we've got to discover here that's very real. It's like I have a unique perspective. I get to hear lots of stories. I get to hear the things that are common that people think aren't common. And so I thank you for sharing the parts of your story that people might be going through alone so that they can feel validated. So on behalf of all them, I want to say thank you
Please
for
do.
your
Yeah.
vulnerability. So
Easy peasy.